I was going to go to school for 4 or 5 years and study a course that I knew that when I came out, the odds would be stacked against me. I didn't want to be the average guy. It was never me. I never wanted to be the average guy. I got my first job in the tech field with Insight Communication. So I didn't start with a marketing background. I got exposed to marketing when I joined Insight, working in tech.
What was growing up like for you?
If I was going to hold one person responsible for how my path went, it would be my dad. So my life, I touched and dabbled across different things I had passion for. I could be successful in any one I decided to be. So for me, it was passionate. I was very entrepreneurial at a very, very young age. I made a lot of money from school that I didn't even need to go home to get money from my parents because yes, I was busy setting up cyber cafes. One of the most pivotal points in my life was when I finally decided to study adult education.
Adult education?
Adult education, what we call a kwagba. I like to say I don't see digital and I don't see traditional. I just see a blank space. It's just blank. It's now for you to paint on it. I'm of the opinion that brands and agencies should begin to plan their communication around the day in the life of who they would say is the ideal target audience.
Hello everyone, my name is Oyoluwatimileye Oyedeji, your host here at Studies and Journeys, where we explore the transformative power of learning, growth, and resilience. Join us as we uncover untold narratives and ignite curiosity. Joining us here today, someone I fully respect. He currently occupies a fantastic role within the industry, and now he is the Managing Director, West Africa for Aleph, representing amazing platforms like Meta, Spotify, Audiomark, X, Snapchat. He's no other person than someone I think you know, Stanislaus Martins. Hi, Stan.
Hi, Timmy. Thank you for the, should I call it standing ovation? Thank you very much. I feel humbled.
Fantastic. Super excited to have you here today, Stan. I know we always chat every now and then, you know, but I don't think we've ever sat down like this to actually talk. Yeah. And myself and the audience really look forward to learning from you today. Looking at your interesting journey, you know, obviously you used to work with Insight Publishers some years ago, and under your belt you have over 2 decades of experience working in digital marketing space. You know, from Insight Publishers, you went on to work with Jumia, you know, as the head of growth there at Jumia, driving so much impact in the e-commerce space in Nigeria. And you went on with so much worth of experience to work with Meta for the market, you know, obviously working with various brands and agencies, trying to see how to leverage digital platforms. You know, what has that journey been like to this point where, you know, you recently, you know, became the managing director for West Africa, you know, at Aleph. What has the journey been like for you so far?
Thanks a lot for that question, really. The interesting thing is I think very recently someone still asked me a very, very similar question. And the person said he looked at my LinkedIn profile and he wanted to understand how it looked like I had been intentional with my career trajectory. I was like, wow, I didn't know that. I didn't know I was intentional about it. So when I look at it myself, it looks like, yes, everything looks like it was planned. But I think for me, it was me always just trying to adapt. It was me trying to consistently, and I still do it now, consistently trying to invent myself and put myself in the forefront of what is hot. A lot of people don't know this, but I always like to say it when I go on interviews like this. My background is in computer science. I didn't study petrochemical engineering or whatever. My background is in adult education.
Adult education.
Adult education, what we call a kwagba.
Wow.
That's what I studied in university, and it wasn't what I wanted, but you know how Nigeria is. That's what I finally got, and I had to make the best of it. At that point in time, tech was the big thing. Everybody wanted to get a certification in one technology, whatever. So I knew, with what I had, with what I was studying, if I had to stay 4 or 5 years studying that university and come out afterwards, I might be at a disadvantage. At that point in time, I knew I had to augment what I was doing. And for me, just by sheer coincidence, my dad bought a computer at home. I fell in love with tech, and I went all out for it. And coincidentally, when I got my first job in the tech field with Inside Communication. So I didn't start with a marketing background. I got exposed to marketing when I joined Insight, working in tech. I was the guy in the server room pretty much. I was the guy that ensured that all the computers were working, the network. And we did some really even awesome stuff tech-wise. And I think tech is still in my blood, as you get to find out. But I guess working in that field, getting to work with some of the most amazing people in marketing, some of the most awesome individuals, I had no choice than to fall in love with that field of marketing. And I learned. While I was doing my tech, I sat with these guys, I understudied. And that's when something called digital began to rear its head. And nobody could understand it in the way I worked. They struggled, they couldn't. But for me, it just came naturally. I didn't know how it came naturally. And my boss at the time, the managing director, Jimmy Awoshika, then was like, okay, look, Stan, you look like you understand this thing more than us. Because at that time, a lot of people thought, oh, for you to understand digital marketing, you have to have a tech background and stuff. And I proved myself in a couple of campaigns. And the gentleman said, okay, look, you go ahead and set up a digital team for us. I had no idea how to do it. But the organization invested so much in me. I was at Cannes for several years. I studied. I mean, they paid so much for me to learn and be able to build up the department as it is. The digital department in Inside Publicis now has grown up to become something called Digitas, which is a very, very big digital name. So what am I trying to say with all these stories? It wasn't intentional. I didn't go to school wanting to study digital marketing. I studied adult education.
Interesting.
I studied adult education. I started working in tech. From tech, it worked for me. At the point I was even voted, I won an award as best employee at Insight. I mean, winning an award as best employee at Insight, a renowned marketing agency.
Yeah, a global agency.
Exactly. And being a tech person, it says a lot. And I worked at Insight. We did some really amazing campaigns, working with some of the best brains, some of the best brands in the industry. Then Jumia came calling. Jumia wanted a head of performance, head of growth, head of performance. We used them synonymously in those days. And I joined them pretty much 2 of my best years working. Oh. I learned so much, and I kept on soaking up all these things. So every point in time for me was, when I was at Insight, we focused more on campaigns from a storytelling point of view. It was more about being emotive. It was more awareness, strategic stuff. It was exciting stuff. But getting to Jumia, as the name says, performance.
Correct.
And when I interviewed for the role, I wasn't really your proper performance marketing guy. But the gentleman that interviewed me said he saw something in me and he was going to give me a chance. And I was there for about 2 years. While at Insights, I moved across departments, and ultimately Meta came calling. Worked with Meta as agency partner for Sub-Saharan Africa. Working with some of the biggest agencies, setting up what we call the agency, the authorized reseller program for Meta, the very first of its kind on the continent. And from there, I joined Dynamo Biolef, one of the partners, as regional director for Meta. And just early this year, I transitioned from that role into the managing director of even me listening to myself speak, it feels like it was all intentional.
It sure sounds like it was.
It feels like it, but in reality, I've just always tried to stay conscious of what what is working and I constantly adapt myself to it. I think where we are now, as an individual, if you don't, if you don't by default have that mindset of continuously. When I was growing up, we didn't have access to all the YouTubes everybody has access to now. There's pretty much nothing that you cannot learn. So for me, it's making myself a sponge, making myself available to learn, identify the opportunities, learning, adapting, networking, and that's pretty much what has brought me where I am now.
Fantastic. I mean, super insightful to sort of hear what that journey has been like. But while you were speaking, that bit around you being intentional, being a sponge to soak in skills, knowledge, all through your journey, stands out for me. What would you say, are things when you think back now, were things you were intentional about? I know you say it's not intentional, the journey, but what were those driving force? What levers, sort of propelled you to wake up every other day, go through traffic in Lagos, for example, bad days at the office, but still keep going on? What were those things?
When I chill with my friends, when we talk about what drives us, the way I always respond to them in a very funny way, but actually very, very makes sense, is the fear of hunger. The fear of hunger for me, again, like I said when I started the story, it was always, I was going to go to school for 4 or 5 years and study a course that I knew that when I came out, the odds would be stacked against me. And I wasn't going to have that. And I had to not just equalize, I had to go beyond what everybody else was doing. And that was it for me. And all through my years, it's always been a case of constantly reinventing myself. I got married at a relatively young age. A lot of my friends always told me that I look like the one I will never get married or the last to get married, but I actually got married before a lot of them.
So you're in the streets for a long time?
I wouldn't say I was on the street, I don't know what you mean. But I got married quickly, I had kids early, and responsibility also set in. I didn't want to be the average guy. It was never me. I never wanted to be the average guy. When I worked at companies like Jumia and I saw I could work with some of the best talents on the continent. Moving from there and working at Meta, which was another life-changing. These guys, working with some of the most brilliant people you ever met with. And being able to rub minds with those guys, you can't work in environments like that and not feel challenged yourself. So I think for me, these were the motivations. I always wanted to be the best of what I could be. People will tell you that Stan always has ideas. He always wants to try something new, and that's just me. I will call myself a restless soul. As I'm speaking and looking around, ideas are coming to my head, and I just need to control myself. But to answer your question, I think for me, it's the desire to always be the best at what I do that moves me.
Fantastic. And I think that's a strong driver, actually. You spoke about working at Meta, but I want to dive back a little. What was growing up like for you?
How much of that do I even remember?
Did you grow up in Lagos?
I grew up, technically I would not say I grew up in Lagos. I was born in Lagos, but I had my primary school here in Lagos. But secondary school was in Ibadan, the Command Secondary School Ibadan. Bodegbo, that's us. And from there, I went straight to University of Ibadan as well. Another 4 or 5 years there, or if you count all the strikes, 6 years. And so a better part of my youth growing up was in Ibadan. So you'll find out that even in Lagos, except for some places on the mainland, a lot of places on the island, I'm just really getting to know them. But if you take me to Ibadan, I'll take you to everywhere you can eat amala in Ibadan, all the nooks and crannies, I know them all. My family, I would say, very comfortable family. I was the only boy. I had 3 loving sisters. And we had a pretty good, everything we wanted we got. And I would say if I was going to hold one person responsible for how my career, how my path went, it would be my dad. It was just a simple gesture of buying a personal computer and just having it in one study, and none of my sisters would touch it, and it was just me. And it was for the family, but I commandeered it, and I pulled it apart and got to understand it inside out. And I would go to Computer Village to find more RAM and install the RAM. Then I changed the monitor. I mean, a part of me was very, very strong in tech, and I thought I was going to do tech for a long time. In my house, in my study then, people would call it the garage. My garage then had a lab, I had a virtual lab. Virtualization is a common thing now, but back in the days, it wasn't something anybody knew about. It wasn't something that was really mainstream. And I built my own labs because I wanted to learn to try to paint scenarios of really realistic scenarios, and I did some really, really complex things right there in my garage, and that's what probably even got me my first job at Insight Publicis.
Interesting. How would you say growing up, so yeah, the computer thing is huge, but when you dial back, when you think back, what memories, of childhood, for example, do you think shaped you to be the man that you are today?
So we were always very independent. We grew up in an estate. We had a big field. We had lots of friends. My parents worked in a particular bank. Everybody in that estate worked in a particular bank. So we shared a lot of commonalities. One thing I would say is we got a lot of freedom to do the things we wanted to do. I don't remember my dad ever hitting me once. I can remember my mom raising her voice at me, but I remember how everything I said wasn't always just knocked off to the side. My parents, I think at a very, very young age, respected me, and they wanted me. If I think back at it now, it was like they wanted me to be my own man, and they at a very early age treated me like I was independent. And I think that independence is one of the things that has made me thrive. I went to boarding school. I went to military boarding school. So there was a lot of discipline. I learned very early to be independent, to be on my own, to take care of my things. I won't say very early because I know for the first 2-3 terms in school, I always lost all my provisions and all my clothes and everything. But as it got better, and I think things like that helped me to build what I would call the resilience that I have now. That I have a never say die attitude. I always just keep on going. And when people point it out at me, I don't see it as something unique. I feel it's just natural.
So the old positivity, the drive is inbuilt because obviously you grew up being independent.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
my parents were very, very supportive of whatever I wanted to do. There was never a point in my life where my parents came to me and said, "Oh, you're going to be a doctor. You're going to be an engineer or whatever." My parents, if I told them I wanted to be a musician, at a point in my life, and this was way back, I was a photographer. I used to do a lot of photography. A lot of people don't know this, but I actually went to film school in New York at a point as well. So my life, I touched and dabbled across different things I had passion for. And I could be successful, I know. I could be successful in any one I decided to be, but I think the calling for me was always marketing and tech, and I just stuck to it.
Brilliant. I mean, I like the story. It's interesting. It's inspirational. But I think Nigeria sort of happened at some point. Like you said earlier, you're trying to study something, like get admission into some field in university, but didn't get that. But obviously, because of your never say die or never say never attitude, you still went on to do adult education. What was that phase like for you? And what would you say, kept you going while studying adult education? Still trying to find your way back to tech. maybe photography, like you mentioned, and obviously marketing as a whole?
So photography came for me, I think it came after uni days. So for me, I stumbled on tech, but I fell in love with it. And for me, like I said, I always felt it was what I was going to do forever. Back in those days, I never stayed on campus, I stayed off campus. And I had my own computers. At the point, I think I had 2 computers. That was back in the days. I had like 2 computers in my room because I used to study. In those days of cyber cafe, there was a cyber cafe in the next building. I pulled the network cable from the cyber cafe into my. So even when I was in school,
For free?
Not for free.
Okay.
So one thing I also did in school was I was responsible for setting up quite a lot of cyber cafes back in the days. So I had all the CCNA certifications, I had all the Microsoft certified professional certifications. So I set up quite a lot of cyber cafes. The one next to me, I also set them up. And as part of our agreement, I got to take a LAN cable into my apartment. So I had internet in my. So for me, it was passionate. I was very entrepreneurial at a very, very young age. I made a lot of money from school that I didn't even need to go home to get money from my parents because, yes, I was busy setting up cyber cafes in Ibadan. And I had a company with a very good friend of mine in school. We actually had a company. We didn't register it, but we had a shop in Agbowo shopping complex, if I remember very, very correctly.
Nice.
And we offered IT services at that very stage. At the point, it looked like maybe this was what I was going to do because you would be with your friends in school and you would get a phone call, oh, my internet is down, please come, and I would rush there. And I felt there was a sense of purpose there. And I mean, if someone told me I would leave that direct hardware, networking, tech field and move into what I'm doing now, which is more marketing, technology and sales, I would have said lie, but...
Interesting. Interesting. I mean, it sort of sounds like you're a bit privileged, like you grew up well-to-do, sort of. But something stands out from what you just said now. You had that entrepreneurial mindset. Most people think that, dabbling into entrepreneurship is a function of hunger. Yeah, fine.
The fear of hunger would knock you in that direction as well.
But you sort of sound like you're a bit privileged. What propelled you into entrepreneurship at such an early stage?
So I wouldn't say privileged. Like I said, I'm a very comfortable family. We're not super rich and we didn't travel abroad all the time and all that. In fact, I never traveled abroad until I started working at Insight. But very comfortable family, very loving family. I didn't really lack anything. So I wouldn't say privileged, but we're comfortable. I think the entrepreneur in me was just because of the way I grew up with my folks, my sisters, and the driver. Look, whatever it is that you need to be, go out there and be, it's all up to you. And I never saw myself as someone that was going to, how the Yoruba says, my Yoruba is not so good like that, Ogun. Having one Ogun that I want to go in. I wanted to build my own legacy. The way my dad was probably going to leave things to me and my sisters, I also wanted to do that for me. And I guess for me, one of the most pivotal points in my life was when I finally decided to study adult education. Right then I got there. There's a long story behind it, but I won't go into it. But at the point, it looked like I was going to lose it. And I was like giving up. Then I got it. And I felt relieved. Then I went back to my room and I sat down and now said, now that I have this, I'm going to be a graduate, fine. But then what job do I do afterwards? And I guess that part for me was one of the most instrumental that set off the chain reaction to turn me into what I am now. So I wouldn't say privileged. I would say I was just someone that was very, very focused. I would not lie to you, I was scared, but we all need a bit of fire in our belly. That fear also propels you to do things out of the ordinary.
Beautiful. Fantastic. Let's go forward a bit. Working at Meta, what was that like for you? Getting the job. I mean, only a few people are lucky to work with Meta, if you know what I mean, right? I consider that to be a great fit, at it, because obviously Meta has almost 30, 40, 50% of digital share in Nigeria currently. And you've been opportune to work with Meta. What was the process of interviewing for the role like? You know, what's the process? What was life at Meta like for you?
I don't know how much I'm supposed to talk about Meta, but
No, but like, I
can
mean,
just
what's the
generalize.
process like? What was it like for you trying to get the role?
So I tried to apply. I applied to work at Meta probably 20 times over the course of my career. From when I was young, I kept on going. And the last time I applied and finally got the job, that was actually when I felt I know I'm going to get this job. Because I looked at the resume, I looked at the JD rather. It was pretty clear it was something I could do. And I was super fit for it. There was a round of interviews. And I would say I probably breezed through it. Working in Meta changes everything for you. Working in Meta, working with big tech really changes everything for you, because automatically the opportunities that are open to you, I think by default are substantially more exciting. Or like, oh, you worked at Meta, it's ex-Meta and things like that. Yeah. But then again, I will also say this, because I speak to quite a lot of young ones. There is nothing, it's not cut out, it's not for a certain few. As long as you've put in all the work and you're not going there to faff, anybody can actually work in big tech. And I won't say Meta.
Yeah.
At Aleph, where I work now, we have some of the most amazing talent here. I could easily take some of those guys and dump them into Meta, and they would fit in perfectly, or dump them into Google. So I don't want people to get, what's the word? I don't want them to get clouded in that mistake. Because when I worked, a lot of people used to call me and like, how did you get there? How did you get there? I interviewed for it. The guys that interviewed you were, one I loved were very, very professional, well brought up, spoke very, very well. They respected you during the interview. There was no fear. It was like at times it didn't even feel like you were interviewing. It felt like you were gisting with friends and things. And the minute you get in, you suddenly realize that at the point the imposter syndrome would want to come in. But when you see your colleagues always reaching out to you for advice, oh, I need help with this, and when they keep on coming to you, then you begin to know within yourself, okay, maybe I do have something here, maybe I do believe, maybe I do belong here and stuff. So yeah, it's actually, working in big tech is actually doable for everybody.
Fantastic. Now, obviously, working at Aleph as well, is a big feat as well. Obviously, looking at what you sit on and the kind of data that you sit on, on the continent, but what would you say are the current challenges, within the space of digital marketing, or marketing as a whole? Obviously, looking at the current economic realities.
Yeah.
And what would you recommend that brands, do to take advantage of, digital as a whole?
This particular topic is one I'm very, very passionate about, and it's one of the things we're trying to learn in the market. Because I come from an OG marketing background, we always believe in the core. Beyond, I don't see digital, and I don't see traditional. I just see a blank space. It's just blank. It's not for you to paint on it. And one would think that with the way internet penetration has developed in Nigeria, with the way mobile penetration, thanks to affordable smartphones and affordable data plans from the telcos, one would think that the way consumer habits has also significantly changed. That marketing professionals on the brand and the agency side would adapt their strategy and budgets along those lines. When you wake up in the morning, what's the first thing you do when you get out of bed?
Obviously, pray, check my phone.
Okay, pray. Let's leave prayer out of it. Prayer is given. But what I wanted to hear is what you just said. You check your phone.
Correct.
You check your phone. And you're going to check that phone. I don't have the stats in my hand. You're going to check that phone an amazing number of times all through the day. And at different points in time, you are checking that phone for different things. You're trying to get news, you're trying to get entertained, you're trying to communicate all through the day. And it presents that opportunity where brands can also engage with you on a consistent basis. How many times have you watched TV let's say this year?
I don't really watch it.
Same here. And how many times have you listened to the radio? Maybe in your car. Almost. Exactly. So it brings me back to what I was going to say. I'm of the opinion that brands and agencies should begin to plan their communication around the day in the life of who they would say is their ideal target audience. It's not around digital or it's not around TV or radio. No. If your ideal audience spends considerable time online, then you should be spending online. I'm hearing that brands like Coca-Cola recently said about as much as 50% of their budget or more is going to go into digital. And that's because they understand. But in Nigeria, it hasn't happened. You wake up in the morning, you check your phone, you get into your car, maybe you're listening to the radio, maybe, but regardless of if you're listening to the radio, if you're not the one driving, you're still on your phone. You're going to be in the office, you're still going to be on your phone. You're listening to Audio Mac, you're listening to Spotify, you're on Instagram, you're on X, you're on Snapchat. That is the way for a brand to connect. Beyond that, I'm going to come outside, I'm going to see a billboard. Fantastic. You understand? If there's a particular program on TV, for instance, everybody watches, like this superstar program, Big Brother Nigeria. Good. If there's a sporting event on TV that you know that your target audience is going to watch, definitely watch, like UEFA Champions League, yes. But I want to challenge and I want to urge at the same time for brand custodians to try as much as possible to ensure they plan their campaigns around the customers' day in their life, along the customer's journey. Whether it be in terms of reach, whether it be in terms of frequency, all those channels. So it's not about buying 20 reaches or 20 impressions on one channel. The frequency comes in when I experience you on this platform, I go to platform 2. When I'm listening, I also experience you. So for me, that's what I would love to see.
Beautiful.
I mean, if I was going to add to that, the economy is really, really bad right now. And marketing, obviously, without a doubt, is always the first budget to be slashed. I've spoken to a couple of my friends, and their marketing budget has been slashed substantially. But guess what? The company also still wants you to deliver, even though the budget is now a fraction of what it used to be. How do you intend to spend that money efficiently? If you're looking for a channel that is going to drive efficiency for you, that's measurable at the end of the day, is digital channels.
Absolutely.
I want to give you 100 million naira. I want to run campaigns on radio. You know how many radio stations we have in Nigeria? Don't get me wrong. I'm not against traditional. I love traditional media. I mean, that's my background. I started from traditional. Insight was always traditional before we came, and things changed along the line. But I'm more of, there needs to be a paradigm shift, a mindset shift from, by default, 90% of my budget must go to traditional.
For no real reason.
For no real reason. The reason is because it's been institutionalized. And you feel that, well, because it's been done before. Yeah, I think I'm challenging marketing directors, and I know a couple of them that already started doing it. I won't call names, but there are brands that I've worked with, that we're working with this year, that have considerably moved their budget up. Digital. Yeah, because it's affordable, it's efficient,
it's measurable.
It's measurable. It's not measurable in the sense of, oh, we finished a campaign, the report is going to come, somebody's going to give us a report. It's real time. Your dashboard is right there with you. So maybe people are scared of that.
Obviously AI as well also has a role to play, looking at what the future has as well.
100%. The AI is, I think I was one of those guys that when OpenAI came out and ChatGPT became like a new thing, I was one of those guys that was very, very vocal about it and writing a lot about it. But But I got tired because it was like every week there was something new. I was like, but I get work, me, I did. But I haven't lost track with ChatGPT. I spend more time within AI than I spend on Google now, which says a lot as well.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see a future where actual AI actually drives search. Not just keywords and stuff.
Of course. And I also hold a very unpopular opinion. I'm president of an association called the Association of Digital Marketing Professionals.
We're actually going to get to that, but please go on.
And when we're in the community and we talk, and I say, look, guys, whether we like it or not, AI will disrupt us. A lot of jobs will be lost, so people need to invent themselves. And a lot of guys have always been very like, no, AI will not do this, AI can't do that. AI will probably not take some jobs, but it will take a lot. So, but it is the reality.
Yeah, I mean, and I also think people also need to get ahead, try to understand what AI is itself, try to learn how they can use AI to actually improve themselves, as well. But yeah, I was actually going to go to AdMap, maybe DM, what's the idea, behind that? What's the birthing story behind that? How did that come about? And what's the vision, for you, for AdMap, and for Africa as a whole?
Okay, so AdMap and DMM are more like they are tied at the waist together. So the way we've done it now is like it was the child that gave birth to the father. Let's use it that way. Because
DMM gave birth to AdMap.
DMM came first. It was a committee of digital marketing professionals. Then AdMap came after, which is also how Insight is, as a matter of fact, because Insight actually started before Troika, the holding company, came in. So AdMap is the Association of Digital Market Professionals. And the idea behind AdMap was, beyond having the DMM community, how can we have an association that aims to help professionalize the discipline of digital marketing? So it doesn't look like it's just anybody can just get into it. And if you get into it, how do we guide you to become better at what you do, which is why we do quite a bit of training. We partner with some of the biggest associations as official sponsors and partners rather, and that's pretty much it. We're trying to the ultimate goal is for us to ensure that discipline of digital marketing is treated as a proper professional. We want to ensure that whoever practices it is good at what they do, and even in terms of remuneration, they are fairly. As I speak to you, we are currently in the middle of a report that is going to dimension the pay disparity within that digital marketing space. That report is hopefully it's going to be out this quarter, if not second quarter. So that's pretty much what AdMap is all about.
Interesting. What would you say your vision for Africa is?
Vision for Africa. So the way to look at the way I would approach that question is just to see Africa as a land of immense opportunity that before now just laid fallow. I mean, I won't go colonial and all that, what have you, but when you look at how much Africa as a country, as a continent, has evolved from a technology point of view in terms of mobile penetration, access to pretty much everything that the West have got access to. And if you look at the fact that the young guys, the new kids on the block, as I would like to call them, are pretty much playing on a level playing field with their Western counterparts. We have some of the best programmers here, some of the most, they see themselves as global citizens.
Correct.
I think the time for Africa is probably now. It's probably now. And we just need to have the leaders and policies
Yeah.
that creates an enabling environment. Some countries are doing some really, really awesome stuff. And even in Nigeria, a couple of initiatives being driven by the government look very exciting. The new Minister of Communication is doing some pretty exciting things around tech. Rwanda is always very, very hot.
Yeah.
So I think the vision for Africa has been bright. It's been bright for a long time. But I think at the end of the day, it's the guys in front who is driving us, who is steering us. If we can get that part right and all the policies and the enabling environment is there, I don't see why we don't thrive. If you look at countries like Singapore, if you look at countries like India, India is synonymous for what now? Tech.
Tech.
India is synonymous for tech.
Yeah. And they have the population.
They have the population. We have the population in Africa as well. We have. I mean, so is that something we want to do? I know we used to be pretty decent in the times of textile in Nigeria, as far as I know.
Yeah.
Agriculture was a big thing for us, also in the 70s, the 80s, the 90s. But all that is lost now. Yeah. So, yeah, I don't want to say let's pray, but
we'll keep our fingers crossed. But I think that obviously beyond the government, like you said, associations like HADMAP, you know, institutions around the marketing space, for example. We already have the entertainment industry actually doing fantastically well. The GDP within that space alone is massive. You know, but I think that obviously with people like yourself, you know, working very closely with institutions and associations, I think we can also get ourselves there. Yeah, we'll play a level playing field with our contemporaries globally, you know, but I think that the future is looking really positive.
100%.
It's looking really positive. So I want to say thank you so much. But before we go, just two more questions. What words do you have to say to that young boy, that young girl, you know, just watching right now, does not have an idea of where the next minute is going to come from, you know, but he or she is heavily driven. You know, he or she has that ideal picture of what the future should look like for them. You know, obviously trying to picture your story as well, and how you've grown from, you know, the university days, childhood university days to being obviously a director now. You know, what advice would you give to such people?
Grit. I mean, GRIT, grit. You could also call it resilience. There's a book by Angela Duckwood I think I've read it twice now, called Grit. Highly recommended. The odds might be stacked against you, but by default you are Nigerian. You are designed, you are born. It's within you to have that grit to persevere. Success is not it's not the sole preserve of a few. And in Nigerian is the best way to actually metamorphose that. What do I mean? Look at the most successful people we have in Nigeria in sports in Nigeria. Look at their background. Look at where Victor Osimhen comes from.
Yeah.
I mean, I could name everybody in the Super Eagles. Look at everybody in the entertainment business. Look at Portable 2 years back. 2 years back. So I think, look at guys like Sujimoto in the business side of things as well. And there are quite a lot of them also, entrepreneurs that their names don't come to mind. I think when you're young ones out there, look at people that have been in their positions, even worse than where they are, and see where they've been able to get to. I think it's obvious that they need to know that the sky is the limit. But don't be deceived. It won't come on a platter of gold. You need to fight for it. As long as you have birds, as long as you keep on soaking, becoming a sponge, learning, persevering, meeting people, and being intentional about wanting to be better, I think we will make it.
Fantastic. So if you're watching, there's hope. The future is bright. Obviously looking at Stan's, story and his advice, you need to persevere. The future is bright. The sky is actually your starting point. I want to say a very big thank you to you, Stan, for joining us today. It's been very insightful learning from you, and also inspiring. Also looking at your journey, and how you've gotten to where you've gotten to now. Obviously, I know you're going to bigger places.
Yes,
If I know you well, but it's been very, very amazing talking to you. But Stan, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Really, really appreciate your time. I know you're a very busy person. Thank you for sharing your time with us and also sharing your story with us at Stories and Podcast.
Thank you.